Ever wondered why Pontius Pilate had met such a dramatic end? Pontius Pilate, a name forever linked to one of the most pivotal moments in human history, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. But Pilate's story is far more complex than a single sentence or a single decision. As the fifth prefect of Judea, he found himself at the center of a delicate political web. His actions had far-reaching consequences, and the tension between the demands of the Roman Empire and the religious fervor of the Jewish population shaped his every move. In this video, we'll take an in-depth look at Pilate's life, his controversial decisions, and the turbulent world he governed. From his rise to power, through the trial of Jesus, and his ultimate downfall, we'll explore the factors that led to his historical legacy and how his actions reverberated through time. Join us as we uncover the political intrigue, personal dilemmas, and power struggles that defined Pilate's reign. Section 1. Early life and rise to power. Pontius Pilate's exact date and place of birth are shrouded in mystery, but it is widely believed that he was born into a Roman equestrian family, meaning he was part of the class below the senators but still had substantial wealth and influence. His early life remains largely undocumented, but from the moment he enters history as the fifth prefect of Judea around 26 AD, we can see that his political savvy was well formed. Judea was a turbulent province in the Roman Empire, located on the eastern edge of the Mediterranean. The Jewish people had long resented Roman rule, seeing the imperial presence as an intrusion on their religious and cultural life. Pilate, chosen by Emperor Tiberius for this high-profile post, was a man tasked with maintaining Roman order and collecting taxes, all while keeping the peace with a volatile population. But governing Judea required more than just military force. It required a deep understanding of the complexities of Jewish traditions, and Pilate's appointment shows how little the Romans understood the subtleties of the region. Pilate's arrival was soon marked by tensions that would come to define his governance. The first of these tensions came from his very approach to Roman authority, which showed little regard for Jewish religious customs. This disregard set the stage for a series of clashes with the local population. Section 2. Pilate's early conflicts with the Jews. The Roman Standards Incident. One of Pilate's first significant missteps came in the early days of his rule when he decided to bring Roman standards into Jerusalem. These standards bore the image of the emperor, an act that deeply offended the Jewish people, who were forbidden by their faith from having graven images. Pilate saw no issue with asserting Roman supremacy in this way, but to the Jews, this was sacrilege. Thousands of Jews marched to Caesarea, demanding the removal of these offensive images. Pilate, determined to maintain Roman authority, initially resisted their demands, but he underestimated the deep-rooted religious convictions of the people. When it became clear that the protesters were willing to die for their beliefs, Pilate was forced to back down, removing the standards from Jerusalem. Though this event did not escalate into violence, it demonstrated Pilate's inability to balance his role as a Roman enforcer with the religious sensitivities of the Jewish population. The Aqueduct Incident. As Pilate's tenure continued, his decisions continued to stir unrest. One such decision was his use of funds from the Jewish temple to build an aqueduct. While this project was likely necessary for the survival of the city, the fact that Pilate used sacred temple money for it deeply angered the Jews. Pilate's actions were seen as both sacrilegious and exploitative. When the people protested, Pilate again responded with his characteristic ruthlessness. He ordered his soldiers to disguise themselves as civilians, and when the protests escalated, they violently suppressed the crowds, killing many. This brutal suppression of dissent created long-lasting resentment against Pilate's rule and further strained his relationship with the Jewish populace. Section 3. The Trial of Jesus. Jesus as a political threat. By the time Jesus came to Pilate's attention, the political situation in Judea had become even more fraught. The region was ripe for rebellion, and Roman officials were increasingly sensitive to any threat to imperial authority. When the Jewish religious leaders brought Jesus to Pilate, they presented him not just as a religious figure, but as someone claiming to be the King of the Jews, a title that could easily be interpreted as a political challenge to Roman rule. Pilate, a shrewd politician, initially sought to distance himself from the issue, questioning Jesus about his claims. In the gospel narratives, Pilate seems reluctant to crucify Jesus, even offering the crowd a choice between releasing Jesus or Barabbas, a notorious rebel. However, the religious authorities, pressing for Jesus' execution, effectively forced Pilate into a corner. Pilate's internal struggle. Pilate's decision to wash his hands before the crowd is one of the most famous scenes from this event. By physically cleansing himself, Pilate sought to absolve himself of responsibility for Jesus' death. But this symbolic act would not shield him from the consequences of his decision. Jesus' crucifixion became a pivotal moment in history, and Pilate's role in it would forever define his legacy. Though Pilate may have hoped that his decision would appease the Jewish leaders and maintain peace in the region, it did not. The crucifixion of Jesus set off a series of events that would change the course of history, not just for Judea but for the entire Roman Empire. The growing movement of Christianity would eventually challenge Roman authority in ways Pilate could not have foreseen. Section 4. The Samaritan Uprising and Pilate's Decline. The Samaritans and Pilate's brutality. After the trial of Jesus, Pilate faced several more years of unrest. The Jewish population remained restless, and the Samaritans, a group of people from the region north of Judea, were particularly discontent. Pilate's brutal suppression of a Samaritan uprising on Mount Gerizim, where many were killed, marked a significant escalation in his use of violence to maintain order. This event brought Pilate to the attention of the Roman authorities. His actions were reported to Vitellius, the governor of Syria, who was not pleased with Pilate's methods. Pilate's response to the Samaritan crisis was to escalate the violence, further alienating him from both the Jewish population and the Roman leadership. Section 5. Pilate's recall to Rome and legacy. Pilate's removal from power. The final blow to Pilate's rule came when he was called back to Rome, following complaints from the Jewish authorities and his handling of the Samaritans. Emperor Tiberius, already uneasy with Pilate's rule, decided to recall him, likely to avoid further instability in the province. Pilate's actions, most notably the handling of Jesus' trial and his brutal methods of governance, did not endear him to those in power in Rome. Pilate's fate after his recall is uncertain. Some historical sources suggest he was exiled and later committed suicide, while others speculate he lived out his days in obscurity. Regardless of the truth, Pilate's time in Judea ended with his fall from grace, leaving him a figure trapped by both his brutal decisions and the turbulent politics of the time. Section 6. Pilate's legacy. Pontius Pilate's legacy has been debated for centuries. Some historians view him as a man caught between his duty to the empire and the complexities of local governance, trying to maintain order in a land rife with religious and political tensions. Others see him as a ruthless, power-hungry leader, indifferent to the suffering of those he ruled. The discovery of the Pilate stone in 1961 confirmed Pilate's historical existence and his role as governor of Judea, providing archaeological evidence of his legacy. His name has become forever intertwined with the crucifixion of Jesus, making him a key figure in the history of Christianity. Ultimately, Pilate's story is one of political intrigue, moral dilemmas, and the harsh realities of imperial rule. Whether he was a mere pawn in a much larger game or an active participant in the events that shaped history is still a topic of debate, but his impact on history is undeniable. Conclusion. Pontius Pilate's life and legacy are emblematic of the struggles faced by those in power, especially in politically charged and culturally divided territories. His decisions and their consequences ripple through history, sparking questions about duty, faith, and governance that remain relevant today. What do you think? Was Pilate a reluctant figure caught in the tides of history, or a cruel ruler who sealed his fate? Let us know in the comments below.